Welcome to another edition of the CivBattleRoyale. My name is Dawkinzz, and this is episode 1 of season 2 of the CBRX, titled Denounce or Bounce. This part is narrated by the CBRX team, including a few like Coyote and Hillspawn and Lunar Needle and Admiral. It's just a whole smorgasbord of great people here. And in this episode, the iron is hot, fingers have been pointed. The new season of CBRX begins with a feisty start as everyone's favorite South American dictator does his thing. Starting on turn 1. Let's get right into this. And oh, I look a little different. How about that? On behalf of all Blue Cassette and the CBRX team, I welcome you to the new season of CivBattleRoyale. The game is presently beyond turn 1000 plus, but today we're going to go over the first 30 turns. The team will be providing some quick introductions and provide play-by-play focus of the first settles, the first mistakes, and the first wars. It was quite a journey getting here after the events of last year, and all the work has paid off with an exquisite game that runs smooth, and even at the turn 1000 mark, operates at roughly 1 hour a turn. How about that? It's an achievement, and I hope you join us throughout the year as we watch it all unfold. This week's OC is Sevastopol Station's wonderful 9-part comic series that led up to tonight's launch. The Civs are itching for the action, and I know the sub will start to make personas from all the crazy stuff waiting for them this season. Now that episodes released bi-weekly, consider contributing, as the community content from the sub has the highest influence on narrations and discussions, and hey, maybe you might even be featured in an episode. And a big thank you to all of our donators that have stayed subscribed throughout the interim. While we have informed Patreons that we have worked on our donation system running Stripe, it is still not ready to accept payments, so Patreon is still the place to directly contribute to covering our server and CDN costs, as well as getting us a little extra for all the hard work and time. There's a lot that goes into this. You should believe me, behind the scenes, I basically just read a script, and that is time consuming, let alone running the game, doing everything behind the scenes. There's a lot going on, so big thank you. As always, there is also the Ko-fi, or Ko-fi, however you want to pronounce it, account. Ko-fi, coffee, there it is. Account for a one-time donation if you would prefer that option as opposed to a subscription. You can find these in the links below. We're also looking to give out incentives to donators, so apart from the private channels on the Discord, the flares, and the ability to request screenshots for insert lines of in-character narration into past albums, Rion will be giving donators a bi-weekly balance bonus to the new stock exchange. If you're unfamiliar with the new stock exchange, check out the Discord, again, linked in the description below. Rion put together this incredible stock bot system that follows along with the game. You can purchase Jamaican stock, and if they do well, you get more money. It's a really, really clever thing, worth checking out. Again, in the Discord below, come join us there. It's hard to be quicker than Varia, and indeed, he was already ready weeks back with the initial state of the game. Always room for more map makers in the community, in particular those that focus on smaller portions of the map and build up fun things to show. This season we also have printout of all the exact locations of cities and citadels, so if you want to play around with Civ-specific maps, it will be easier now more than ever to not have to squint on the minimap. Northern Yuan is the inaugural leader at the #1 spot of the rankings. Please correct me if I ever mispronounce anything, which I doubt I will considering all the easy to pronounce things this season. It does not mean that Mandukai has to live up to the big expectations, and this season will be much harder to determine a clear leader than last year. Difficulty staying at the top is especially true for her since pesky Southern Yuan is in the way. The Cylinder's most advanced piece of technology, the cyber sub RSV Babylonian Observer, lies in wait, submerged within the frigid waters of Lake Vostok. Surrounded by the inhospitable Antarctic landscape and encircled by nigh impenetrable ice shelves, it is the most secure location on the Cylinder, concealing the most closely guarded secret of the known world. It's all a simulation. Aboard the RSV Babylonian Observer, under the newly established command of Admiral Khalif Abd ar-Rahman III, the various radars, sonars, and sensors of the sub are calibrated and uncalibrated. The live video feeds from countless satellites orbiting the cylinder are played across a dozen screens in the Babylonian Observer's bridge, and dozens of Babylonian operatives in deep cover in all the cylinder's civilizations are ready to begin collecting intelligence. Seated on his command throne, Abd ar-Rahman III unseals the RSV Babylonian Observer's orders, passed down from Nebuchadnezzar II himself to Pedro II before him, and now in his possession. Their task is laughably simple, yet confoundedly complex. "Commence Operation Observer," Admiral Khalif Abd ar-Rahman III commands. "Start up the Battle Royale." Iceland, presided over by the academically inclined President Kristján Eldjárn, lies at the most northwestern corner of Europe. The RSV Babylonian Observer's team of expert analysts, fondly dubbed the Power Rankers, don't have high expectations for Iceland's performance. President Kristján seems more interested in cultural aspirations than warfare and expansionism, though he can be relied upon to assert his civilization's fishing rights. That is all well and good, for the harsh terrain of the North Atlantic islands won't feed a population bent on world conquest, but the fish of the sea might. Now, Hillspawn was kind enough to make this slide to the tune of the Welsh national anthem, the Hen Vald Fai Nadau, but I'm in a bit of a rush. I can't do that, so I'm just going to read it like a poem. Forgive me. Forgive me. The land of Wales is dear to Llewellyn, old land where their settlers are unrivaled and free. In war, its defenders so gallant and brave, outnumbered will probably be. Wales, Wales, good luck to Wales, their seas secure, their land so pure. Oh, may the old language endure. Old land of the hills, the paradise of cattle, each gorge in each valley, for now free of battle. If Llewellyn builds cities and cares in court, there may be more Welsh lands and shores. Yet foemen may trample his land 'neath their feet. The language of Cambria will know no retreat. City names won't be erased if traitors take their land, nor silence the harp in Dawkinz's hand. Thanks. The fate of Western Europe in this simulation will likely be decided by the choices of these future rivals. The Gauls, led by Vercingetorix, I'm gonna love this season, and Spain, led by Carlos III. The senior partner of Bourbon and Son is seen as a strong contender by the analytics team, possessing uncontested land in Iberia and a reputation for competent rule, whilst Vercingetorix is under threat of being hemmed in on all sides by Wales, Spain, the two Sicilies, and Germany. The Gauls can be masters of their own fate by taking the fight to the Spaniards, claiming the strategically important choke points of the Pyrenees, but they'll need to show aggression to succeed at such a ploy. Unfortunately, if history is any guide, the Gauls won't take up arms before they're already in the jaws of defeat. Sporting scandalous shades of tan, neither the Vandals nor the Taurug are seen as favorites in the illicit betting rings of the RSV Babylonian Observer's mess deck. Blending into the arid plains and deserts of Maghreb, Genseric and Tin Henan are both held back by the limited resources and opportunities for expansion at their disposal. Where the Taurug can count on the desert being on their side in any future wars, the Vandals' best hope lies in conquering the coastal cities of the Mediterranean, but there is no guarantee the Genseric is up to that task. Isn't Genseric a Pokemon? South of Abalesa, Tamasankara strives to inspire Burkina Faso's revolutionary zeal for liberating the working classes of West Africa from their chains, as well as from the governance of other civilizations. The major hurdle standing between Africa's Che Guevara and a permanent revolution around the entire cylinder is geography. Oh boy. Ouagadougou may be the inhospitable lands south of Sahel, but Burkina Faso will have to fight to stake their claim on West Africa. The Sahara Desert to their north does not exactly beckon colonists, and the Tuareg, with their defensive bonuses, will be a tough nut to crack. Nigeria looms to their east and will challenge Burkina Faso for control of the thin, fertile strip between the Sahara and the Atlantic Ocean. Sankara, like the rest of the Cylinder's socialist revolutionaries, has many counter-revolutionary forces to overcome. Southeast of Burkina Faso, Lagos and Kinshasa are separated by the Gulf of Guinea, the Congo Basin, and the vastly different expectations placed upon them. While Mobutu Sese Seko's authoritarian kleptocracy of Zaire is estimated to be an African superpower, Nigeria's past performance in preliminary simulation only nets them an average rating in the analytics team's estimates. Awolowo has great potential for rapid population growth thanks to the mores and folkways of the giant of Africa, but his leadership style is better suited for winning over the hearts, minds, and souls of his enemy's civilians, whereas on the Cylinder only conquest matters. Mobutu Sese Seko is likelier to be the man to recognize his moment and seize the rich lands of Africa when the time comes. Far to the south of Zaire, but not far enough to feel entirely comfortable, Jacob Morenga leads Namibia. Windhoek straddles both the Namib and Kalahari deserts, and like Tin Hanan's Touareg in the Sahara, Namibia's deserts are their greatest allies in war, devastating their foes through attrition. The dead of their enemies are seen as sacrifices to the sinister Namibian gods, inspiring the faith of their people. Perhaps it is for the best that Namibia is situated in a subpar desert location wedged between Lesotho, Zaire, and the ocean, for Jacob Morenga's reign of terror and human sacrifice would surely spell an even grimmer, darker future for the Cylinder than is otherwise anticipated by the Antarctic observers. Southeastern Africa and Madagascar lie open to Moshoeshoe I Lesotho. Moshoeshoe gained his kingdom through warfare and kept it through skillful diplomacy. Lesotho's defensive edge in hilly terrain means that the kingdom in the sky will likely play a role in the action of southern and eastern Africa for quite a while, though the risk of being reduced to a forgotten enclave within a larger African empire is very real. East Africa is home to two maritime powers, Zanzibar and Somalia, fated by geography to be rivals. Mohammed Said Barre, Africa's other socialist revolutionary, has the edge over Sultan Bargash bin Said in naval warfare. However, the Sultan is expected to establish a naval empire across the islands of the Indian Ocean, island hopping out of harm's way. Rather evenly matched civilizations, the winner of this East African duel will either come out tough enough to take on the other African powers, or as a Pyrrhic victory with little strength to oppose an invasion from their numerous neighbors. Whether the celestial orbs align with Somalia's Star of Unity or Zanzibar's navies have the wind at their backs, East Africa promises to provide an interesting case study in naval power struggles. The Middle East is crowded with sunburnt crusaders, Greeks cosplaying as Egyptians and famed railroad demolitionists, and the region is predicted to spiral into violence and suffering before being permanently stabilized through intervention from outside the region. The Ptolemies, under Cleopatra, look to make friends and trading partners, but on the Cylinder all friendship is temporary and trade merely a method for financing war. Hussein bin Ali's Hejaz also desires friendship, if only to gain foreign operatives to advise his military. Baldwin III already owns the holy city of Jerusalem the Crusaders so coveted, and so he must now cynically justify his wars of expansion under the guise of uniting the faithful under the banner of Jerusalem, assuming his civilization produces a religion. All three of them must overcome the inherent challenges of the desert landscapes they inhabit, and Jerusalem and the Ptolemies must be especially wary of naval invasions across the Mediterranean. Truly, there are few locations on the Cylinder with bleaker outlooks than the Middle East. The narrow Adriatic Sea lies between Kosovo and the Two Sicilies. The junior partner of Bourbon and Son, Ferdinand I of the Two Sicilies, son of Spain's Carlos III, helped by the Two Sicilies' ability to upgrade its existing navy and gain free naval units whilst building cargo ships, is expected to rise to rule the Mediterranean. It is not entirely unlikely that the Sicilian navy is the last thing seen by the Vandals, the Ptolemies and Jerusalem, and with the Alps and Apennines to secure them from European invasions, the Two Sicilies are in a competitive position. Again, I'm pretty sure I pronounced everything perfectly. Ibrahim Rugova must be glad that Pristina is not settled on the coast, preferring the security of the Balkan mountains. Kosovo's ability to pull their friends into their wars has the potential to amplify the military threat posed by the Kosovars, bringing coalitions of civilizations against their foes in possibly apocalyptic conflicts. While the two Sicilies in Kosovo are not guaranteed to come to blows early on in the simulation, we can safely bet that the first global conflict will begin because of some damn friendly thing in the Balkans. The German Empire and the Teutonic Order are very similar. Both are Germanic, militaristic, and surrounded by enemies. However, where Wilhelm II is expected to celebrate numerous victories and dominate the European continent, most prognostications envisage Hermann von Salza being served humiliating terms of surrender by one or both of their mighty neighbors, the German Empire or the USSR, as the Baltic region, which the Teutonic Order was established to conquer and convert, lies squarely in the spheres of influence of both greater powers. Wow, that's a mouthful. While Germany is all but guaranteed their place in the sun, the Teutonic Order will need all the help, defense, and healing in the world to be considered a contender. Baron Mannerheim and King Karl XII glare at each other across the Baltic Sea, which isn't wide enough to prevent the eventual war between these cross-flagged rivals. Finland and Sweden are both militaristic civilizations, with Sweden favoring the offense and Finland defense. It remains to be seen which of the brothers is first to throw down the gauntlet and march their forces around the Gulf of Bothnia, or set out on an amphibious invasion. Sweden is favored in this matchup, for Finland most constantly guard their eastern flank against Soviet attacks, while the Baltic Sea guard Sweden against Germany. Even if Iceland or Wales were to colonize the Norwegian coast, Sweden's military strength would likely outmatch any civilizations attempting to establish a North Sea empire. The Marshal of Finland is historically the best leader to guide his civilization in a war against insurmountable odds, but he has to face the limitless ambitions and military genius of Karl XII. While the Pride of Lions typically has multiple males, one of these northern lions may very well have to swallow their pride and surrender to the other. Vladimir Lenin leads the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, terrifying all the monarchs, theocrats, aristocrats, plutocrats, kleptocrats, and democratically elected heads of state of Eurasia. Though his rule does not yet extend far beyond Moscow's Red Square, Lenin is ready to bring his proletarian revolution to the ends of the cylinder. His admirers in Burkina Faso, Somalia, and Vietnam couldn't hope for a better role model, though it is doubtful whether they will be able to rise to the same heights anticipated of the USSR. The USSR is expected to become an industrial powerhouse, swelling the Red Army's ranks with fresh soldiers and its cities with impressive infrastructure, and it will take a counter-revolutionary coalition or an old enemy in the East to take Lenin down. Though not this old enemy. Stephen I shepherds Great Perm, filling in the expanses of tundra surrounding the Urals. These lands, which other civilizations turn up their noses at, are a treasure to the Permians. The sheer quantity of frozen waste available to Great Perm makes them a competitive civilization, for even cities settled in the tundra are cities in which armies can be produced and faiths established. Permian merchants are able to maximize their profits in the tundra, aiding Stephen's efforts for expansion. While less warlike than their neighbors, the Arctic wastes and taiga, stretching as far as the eye can see, will slow down any invaders, at first at least. Great Perm promises to build an empire where no other civilization wants to settle, though we hope it is more exciting to watch than a hibernating bear. Looking at you, Yakusha. Georgia and Kurdistan both consider the mountains their dear friends. Both civilizations gain their own defensive advantages from the mountains, with Tamar constructing citadels and houses of worship in the Caucasus, providing unsaleable walls and a shield of faith to her people, where Mustafa Barzani's Kurds will forage the Zagros Mountains for all the resources they are able to find therein, seizing the impassable terrain as their own. Both civilizations will be nearly impossible to dislodge from their defensive positions, though Kurdistan is considered a favorite to rise to a dominant position in the Middle East, utilizing their advantages in high-altitude warfare to pick apart the civilizations to their south. Georgia, on the other hand, must swiftly expand beyond their mountainous homeland, or risk being surrounded by the Soviets to their north and the Kurds to their south. Islam's Karamov's Uzbekistan is the Cylinder's Central Asian powerhouse, with natural boundaries providing shelter from Punjabi, Permian, and all Russia incursions, whilst having nearly unchallenged claims to huge tracts of land. While fortuitous geography has granted Islam Karamov's great potential, it is his innate potential which makes Uzbekistan a strong contender to rise to primacy among the civilizations of the Cylinder. Whenever Uzbek cities grow in population, there is a chance that the excess population will be forced to slave away in producing gold, entertainment, military forces, or civilian laborers. Life under the iron rule of Islam Karamov may be harsh, but none can deny that this style of governance benefits Uzbekistan in competition with its neighbors. Lenin's old enemy, exiled from the true capital of the Russian civilization, bides his time in Omsk. Far beyond the Urals, Admiral Kolchak's provisional all-Russian government is consolidating its forces in preparation for the final showdown, the conquest of all Russian lands. What Kolchak defines as Russian lands remains to be seen, but Uzbekistan and Great Perm, his nearest neighbors, not that they are too close for comfort, need to watch out. While Lenin's USSR and Moscow are Kolchak's ultimate target, the PARG's armies may find themselves conquering many lands before they reach the end of the winding railroad back to a home they've never known. For that to happen, though, Parg must settle all the land they have available, or risk disappointing Kolchak forever. High up in the Himalayas, Bhutan and Punjab are poised to ask the entire rest of the world whether they have a minute to talk about their religion. Where Thimphu's happy population are likely to find meaning in life through religion, Punjab will, given the opportunity, greet its neighbors by sending their missionaries first and their armies second. Given the close proximity of Mount Kailash to Lahore, Ranjit Singh is all but guaranteed to found a religion, and foreign cities which he converts will soon be celebrating the arrival of Punjabi troops. Bhutan's king, Jingme Singye Wangchuk, will need all the Dapan archers he can recruit to keep his kingdom free from Punjab's clutches, but he is known to be eager to recruit them, so even if Bhutan does not come to rule all of the Indian subcontinent, it may simply prevent his enemies from moving with the sheer volume of Dapans in the field. The southern tip of the Indian subcontinent is inhabited by Chola, led by Raja I. Their location is unenviable, surrounded by the Indian Ocean in 3 directions, with 2 competitors to the north. Sri Lanka, with its natural wonder the Sripada, is open for Chola settlers, which means the Chola stand a strong chance to found a religion, but this will only help them so far. Raja I has his work cut out for him if he wishes to establish a Chola thalassocracy in the Indian Ocean. I don't know what that is. In the preliminary assessment of the Cylinder's civilizations delivered into Admiral Caliph Abd ar-Rahman III's desk, the Babylonian analytics team rated Mandukai's Northern Yuan as the most powerful civilization on the Cylinder. Reading over the report, Abd ar-Rahman found the Northern Yuan's abilities and armies fine-tuned for conquest of enemy cities opportune for world conquest. Now, with the video feed from the Babylonian satellites on his screen, he is impressed. Karakorum is surrounded by land which none of Northern Yuan's neighbors can easily access. Mandukai has all the horses she could need to equip a cavalry charge which would blot out the sun with the dust kicked up by their hooves. From the Mongolian steppes, a true contender may rise, and Abd ar-Rahman wonders, could this Khatun of the Northern Yuan truly be his successor at the RSV Babylonian Observer's helm? Kublai Khan's Yuan were once steppe nomads themselves, but in their capital of Khan Balik along the High River, the Yuan are more the rulers and defenders rather than conquerors of empires. When fighting numerically or technologically superior foes, the Yuan work tirelessly to close the gap, and once surpassed will sap away the defenses of their opponents' cities. Much of northern China lies open to them, assuming Northern Yuan does not get there first. Many have counted out Yuan, but that is a mistake. However, Kublai Khan must remember not to rule out the Manchu. In Mukden by the Liao River, Nurhaci and his octagonal military structure await the opportunity to march into Khan Balik. The Isengyoro chieftain has already forged the disparate Jurchen tribes into the unified Manchu civilization, and if either of the Yuans, northern or otherwise, fail to take dominion of northern Asia, the Manchu candidate is ready to take their place. A lot of things I have never spoken before. There it is. A jade green paint job and a change in spelling is all it takes to turn China's southern capital of Nanjing into a holy city fit to house a divine being, the capital of the Lord and Savior Yasujidu's younger brother, Hong Jiquan. While the population is inclined to believe that Hong Jiquan is indeed the younger brother of an incarnate god from far in the west, Hong Jiquan's neighbors cannot be convinced to submit to the Taiping's heavenly kingdom by the ravings of a madman. However, his armies are ready to reach out to those whom the Taiping Heavenly King can't sway. South China is a verdant, lush paradise, a fitting land to proclaim heaven on the cylinder, but Hong Jiquan's erratic leadership might prove more dangerous than a serpent's whispers for the longevity of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom. Hanoi and Vientiane are home to two civilizations and two leaders who are not fated to coexist for long. Indochina is too small for both Ho Chi Minh and Pha Nhum, their borders nearly touching and their armies already scouting the terrain between them. In this coming conflict, Vietnam's guerrilla tactics and ability to utilize Laotian infrastructure will be pitted against the Laos Uparanja generals and war elephants. Okay, the Truong Son Trail may once again bring Ho Chi Minh victory in safeguarding the revolution, though he has to work fast lest Pha Nhum's war elephants catch his guerrillas, or worse, his cities by surprise. Whether the Buddhist king or the Marxist-Leninist revolutionary emerges victorious from this conflict, they will lead a veritable Southeast Asian regional power. At the southern tip of the Malay Peninsula, Mansur Shah is sovereign over the Strait of Malacca, and no trade passes without his say-so, so as is explicitly detailed in the maritime law of Malacca. Mansur Shah is fortunate to be far from the attention of his northern neighbors in Vietnam and Laos, and is better suited for naval conflict than Jan Cohen's Dutch East India Company. Malacca has a maritime mindset in both military and mercantile matters, and their emphasis on trade may very well aid them in equipping a potent navy. However, there are only so many opportune targets for Mansur Shah, and he'll have to embrace the life of a landlubber if he desires prolonged success on the cylinder. Krakatoa's ever-smoking caldera is an inescapable sight for the citizens of the Verenigde Oostindische Companies, first company of Batavia. That's how you pronounce it. It also holds some poetic symbolism for how the RSV Babylonian Observer's analytics team expects Jan Cohen's time on the cylinder to go. Up in flames. While the VOC is more than happy to claim as many of the Spice Islands as they can, they are at risk, squeezed between a competent naval neighbor in Malacca and the looming threat of a strong Australian civilization turning its gaze to the southeast of Asia. If Jan Cohen is able to direct the VOC or VOC in claiming all of the Indonesian archipelago, he may stand a chance against the civilizations of Indochina, Australia, and India. However, he is equally likely to sink to a watery grave or spontaneously combust. Mutit Julu and Coranderk are the first settlements in the land down under, emerging from the dream time onto prime time programming aboard the RSV Babylonian Observer. At the foot of the Uluru, Chilpis Anagu they're guaranteed to be a religious powerhouse, drawing upon the wonders of nature and the traditions of their ancestors in inspiring their faith. However, their initial position in the heart of the desert is considerably weaker than that of their immediate neighbor, Cullen. William Barak can expand along Australia's east coast and beyond onto the secure isles of New Zealand, while the Anangu must trek through the desert to reach the continent's prime territories. Cullen and Anangu are another fated pairing, though the two may agree to coexist longer than other regional neighbors. From the island of Oahu, Queen Liliuokalani rules Hawaii. The Hawaiians don't have to fear the threat posed by foreign business interests to the security of their kingdom, though they should still prepare for the day when the other civilizations of the cylinder take interest in the archipelago at the crossroads of the Pacific. Speaking of Pacific, meaning peaceful, Queen Liliuokalani's focus on flourishing arts and culture may keep her citizens happy and intellectually satiated, but pens are poor competitors to swords. The Pacific Ocean is wide, but Hawaii has reason to fear both the inhabitants of the west coast of North America and the East Asian civilizations, or else these paradise islands may become a paradise lost. The Shogun of Darkness rules the lands of the rising sun, where in the shadows of smoke-filled rooms, money and loyalty change hands. Infrastructure contracts are awarded to political allies, and members of the fledgling Yakuza gangs and emerging Zaibatsu cliques take form. At the heart of it all, Tanaka Kakoi orchestrates the secret arrangements to best serve the interests of Japan and himself, whilst promising prosperity to the peasants of his civilization. Secluded on his island at the edge of Asia, Tanaka Kakoi must compete with Manchu, Yuan, and Chukchi for land if he wishes to keep Japan under his control. While corruption changes can't bring down a leader on the cylinder, conquerors crossing the Sea of Japan can. It is a good thing that Japan has a leader as ambitious and unscrupulous as Tanaka Kakoi, who might just have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with the continental chieftains and emperors of East Asia. Untitled nomadic hunters and fishers are ready to take up arms and raid both East Asia and Alaska, eager to defeat the weak southerners and return home as heroes. Kagirgin, or Kagirjine, is perched at the furthest ends of Eurasia on the Chukotka Peninsula, in an environment which the Chukchi are well adapted to exploit, plentiful in fish, crabs, and deer. The Chukchi are fortunate that none of their Asian neighbors are as well adapted to tundra life as they are, and their Choltenin composite bowmen, coupled with their ability of their troops to claim nearby battlefields into their empire and force enemy forces to retreat, will help the Chukchi hold their own in future wars against the likes of the Manchu, the Northern Yuan, and the Japanese, and civilizations further to the south. Untitled settlers will have a slightly harder time reaching the best settlement locations, but once there, the Chukchi are well set to keep pushing forth and take the fight to their enemies. The first satellite image from the New World shows the two northernmost civilizations of the Americas, Thanadeltur's Dene and Four Bears' three affiliated tribes. The Dene are a pious and cultured civilization which immediately places them at a disadvantage in the competition for dominance in North America. The Dene are in a good position to settle much of the land in the Arctic Circle, which may improve their longevity. Thanadeltur's sacred drummers may fill the Arctic with the sounds of sweet music and sermons, but she'll need soldiers to stop her cities from being filled with the sounds of battle. To the south along the Missouri River, Four Bears plots out the beginnings of his Great Plains trade empire in the curiously named Like a Fish Hook. The three affiliated tribes are expected to be strong contenders to establish themselves as the regional power of the Northwest, but they have to keep watch on the horizon across the plains in case the Mississippi run out of farmland for their corn and need to seek it out in the lands of their neighbors. Comcomly's Chinook are already claiming the bounty of the sea outside their borders, as they will aspire to do as long as they have a coastal presence on the cylinder. The Rockies shield the Chinook from aggressors for now, and if Comcomly's wishes to enjoy the bounties of the sea for long, he would do wisely to not only seize territory along the coast as well as inland towards the mountains, building a powerful core for his empire and setting up plank houses all the way to support his trade efforts. The Chinook and the three affiliated tribes may be eager to trade together, but as neighbors, the two may very well come to blows before long, as neighbors on the cylinder are wont to do. Traveling south along the west coast, we find the Tongva capital of Juyupit and Laredo, capital of the Rio Grande. With Tiat settler scouts available to sail away to distant lands, Toipurina is in a comfortable position to establish herself as empress over a trans-Pacific realm. However, like many of the civilizations dotting the Pacific Rim, she is more of a cultivator of culture than a conqueror. Toipurina stands a chance to rule the waves, though she has to watch her back and flank. Antonio Canales Ricio's civilization is named after its river and known for its horses. Rio Grande is expected to be one of the strongest candidates to conquer the Western world on horseback, thanks to their powerful mounted units and turning the very rivers of their lands against their enemies. North America has no shortage of rivers, and Rio Grande has mastered the art of breeding horses, so their neighbors are right to fear the name of El Zorro de Chaparral. Most of the civilizations on the cylinder only care for terrestrial matters, and so the Olmecs, obsessively watching the movements of Venus, stand out from the crowd. Ukix-chan promises to turn some heads into stone, that is, immortalizing the great people of his civilization as colossal heads, looming menacingly in the jungles of Central America. Nestled on the Bay of Campeche at the back of the Gulf of Mexico, Coatzacoalcos is far enough from other civilizations to allow the Olmecs to focus on astronomy and headwork. Ukix-chan is not perceived as an aggressive enough leader to unite all of Central America under Olmec rule, but if he finds himself in the right headspace with a shining morning star to guide him, who knows what the Olmecs can accomplish. At the bottom of Admiral Khalif Abd ar-Rahman III's list of the analytics team's preliminary assessments of the cylinder's civilization rests Jamaica. Marcus Garvey has been written off as a contented and relaxed leader of a generally light-hearted and easygoing Caribbean civilization, with no hopes for success given the harsh realities of life on the cylinder. While the RSV Babylonian Observer's commander may be fond of Jamaica's reggae and herbal remedies, he foresees Marcus Garvey's return to the submarine to be in the role of court bard rather than commander. Due south of Kingston, he sees more potential in Simón Bolívar's skills as a leader of armies and liberator of cities. Bolívar proclaims that Gran Colombia will bring stability and prosperity to all the civilizations of Latin America. Haha, that's right, stability. That's funny. And his libertador generals are equally capable at leading troops as they are at writing up elaborate political treaties to back up Bolívar's message. While the rough terrain of Central America and the Amazon may slow down Gran Colombia's conquests, much is expected of Simón Bolívar, and I would say, don't rest on Jamaica. Marcus Garvey and Jamaica are more than just a meme. They are a proud people, and you should definitely invest in them. Both Solano Lopez's Paraguay and Andrés de Santa Cruz's Peru-Bolivia are civilizations built for war, yet neither of them is expected to come out on top in South America. The Frankenstein's Confederacy of Peru-Bolivia is able to use trade to pacify and profit off conquered civilizations, and is specialized in building navies for coastal conquests. Paraguay doesn't allow limited resources to stand between itself and necessary infrastructure, and in a pinch can sell everything in the kitchen sink to rush out armies. However, their main challenge is the competition they face from the rest of South America. In the Power Ranker's expert opinions, any of the other South American civilizations stand a better chance at victory than Paraguay and Peru-Bolivia. While Tacna and Asuncion house able leaders, they may very well be outmatched. Lataros Mapuche inhabit terrifically defensible terrain in the southern cone of South America. The Andes protect Paren from their neighbors. The Mapuche are able to seize rival territory with their Chamamul memorials, established on the land where Mapuche forces fall, and thus make territorial gains even whilst losing soldiers. Fighting on these Chamamols bolsters the Mapuche forces, and so any forces trying to conquer the Mapuche face a nigh impossible task, and Lataro's forces marching where their predecessors fell will swipe aside the enemies to his north. The fiercely independent people of Quilombo dos Palmares are established in the eastern tip of South America. Zombies capoeiristas are evasive masters of the wilderness and will be able to outmaneuver any of their neighbors in the jungle. A nation of escaped slaves, the ethos of freedom which the Palmares embodies can sway any rival civilians to their side. However, they will need more than capoeiristas to solidify themselves on this forgotten continent. The last of the South American civilizations is Pacui's Marajoara. Secure in the Amazon River Delta, Camutins is protected by the rainforest that surround it, as well as Marajoara's Teso shrines, which can be built and rebuilt era after era, increasing the city's health each time. Marajoara has great potential if given the opportunity to grow undisturbed by its neighbors. Far away from the more aggressively militaristic civilizations of South America, Marajoara may be the one left standing in the rubble of their petty wars. However, if Zumbi or Simón Bolívar decide that Pacui's population needs liberating, Marajoara's story may come to a sudden stop. Roughly smack dab in the middle of North America, Tuscaloosa governs in Cahokia. The Great Plains of North America are flatter than the ends of the cylinder, and it is here the Mississippi will plant the kernels of their amazing economy. Get it? Amazing. The Mississippi have structured their civilization around regional centers, cities with high population, which support the growth and infrastructure development in adjacent cities. While the Mississippi don't stare at the sky like the Olmecs, they take a keen interest in how far from the equator they are, placing a strange religious significance on this distance. Tuscaloosa leads one of the strongest civilizations in North America, with incredible potential to grow into the breadbasket of the Great Plains. However, the wide open terrain which he is likely to settle won't benefit any defensive efforts once war breaks out, and on the cylinder, wars always break out. The last two civilizations of North America round out this introduction to the civilizations competing for conquest of the cylinder. So Harrison leads the neutral nation, wedged between the Huron and Ontario lakes. The analytics team has flagged the neutral nation as the North American civilization with the greatest potential for success. The neutral nation's armies swell with green recruits seized from the civilian populations of the freshly conquered cities of their foes, fated to either fall in battle or eventually join the tattooed ranks of the neutral nation. However, the neutral nation's greatest advantage may be its closest neighbor, New Netherland. Peter Stuyvesant leads the second Dutch colony on the cylinder, and these strangers in a strange land will need grit and determination if they are to survive the frontier justice which the rest of North America is prepared to dole out. Peter Stuyvesant is here to build forts and hunt beavers, and to his credit, building forts will lengthen New Netherlands' lifespan on the cylinder. The whole eastern seaboard is open for New Netherlands to colonize, but so long as the Dutch have the neutral nation in their faces and the ocean at their backs, they will be under constant threat. The neutral nation also have the distinct advantage of being a civilization that I helped make. It's something that Dawkinzz made with the Round Table team. I'm giving a specific shout out to Explosive Watermelon and Limerick Archer. You guys, if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't be possible for them to be in this game. And I'm very proud of them, and I really like them, and I hope they do well, and I hope you root for them too. As you can see, my ball is supporting them, as you saw in the beginning slide, but on to actual action. Old Solano is back to his old habits, it seems. Damn, that didn't even last through the whale's turn before a shot was fired across the bow to their South American rival. Honestly, if he doesn't burn down every bridge between him and his rival, he is in a good position to wreak havoc across the cylinder. A toast to this game's chaotic evil, everybody. The provisional all-Russian government was truly a nation I wanted to see in. Do I think they'll do well? Well, maybe. They have some decent land available to scoop up, even if it lacks Arctic Ocean access from seasons past. It's still good enough land to settle, and every tile can be a good enough city once the tech is properly stabilized. If I was in Kolchak's position, I would build archers and settlers ad infinitum and settle those tundra cows for no reason other than to say that my beef gives me cold resistance too. Oh my Lord Malacca, the game has just started and you're moving towards the Dutch East India Company. This is either going to be like the Boer forward settle that chokes the naval trading empire to the island of Java, or a move that nets one foreign-sounding city in Jen Cohen's impressive city portfolio. Considering how the majority of the units are moving towards this new settle, I'm beginning to believe the former. In a saying that I will say time and time again, time will tell. Something that I've learned in playing Civilization for as long as I have is that settles are investments. They take a lot of production and stifle a city, but in exchange grant you a section of the land that without war you will never lose. You could either settle optimally, like 3 affiliated tribes settle of Sipusha, or you could settle knowing a war will happen with your neighbor, like that with the Dene settler in the northern sector of the map, with a lake and a set of hills to provide defense. The best route for the former is defend the city you settled, but for the latter here, they need to produce an army and take Sipusha immediately, or they will be on the defensive for the rest of the game. These turns will be a test for Thandalathur. The Gauls and Germany are both huge contenders here with 2 large plots of easily industrialized land. The Gauls' UA allows them to summon silver, gold, copper, iron, or aluminum when building mines, so as they industrialize they might not experience the early game happiness slump that their Germanic or Hispanic neighbors will. Speaking of Wilhelm II moves his settler east of Berlin while the Gauls settle towards the English Channel. I put my coins on Gauls to make a defensive empire while I expect Germany to burn bright and die quick. But yet again, they do have a great war infantry replacement called Stormtrooper, which can make for some quality memes if I do say so myself, if they last that long. In order to play the role of an insane and mentally depressed person in the movie Joker, Joaquin Phoenix witnessed the settlement of the Kosovoan city of Prizren, effectively shutting down the possibility of a canal city between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. And yes, I think I pronounced both of their names wrong. For real though, look at the quality of land here, full of resources and flat land which could make war an absolutely explosive prospect. I'm legit excited for Eastern Europe this game. Remember, this was the front that saw the amazing Kazakh collapse last season, and it's likely to only get more juicy as the season continues. There's a lot of small things to glean from this screenshot. Tongva settles a city close to their capital with no luxury resources visible. Maybe they see oil under the sand. Either way, not a fantastic settle. Rio Grande seems to be sending their settler down south towards Olmec. I hope Olmecs have some big brain plays in their colossal head of theirs. Meanwhile, the Mississippi seem to be moving closer and closer towards Rio Grande. I expect there to be a clash very soon between them. I could see a full defeat of either of them to be the deciding point for the continent. Rio Grande needs to get a hold of horse units quickly so their units can start with the bonus experience from their unique ability. Agat, that's a bold settle. Tuareg might be wanting to raid the caravans of the desert with their unique ability with that settle, as all land trade routes through their land steal gold. But I don't think angering your nearby neighbor, one with access to cargo ships, is a great idea, Tinhanan. Again, just like Dene and the 3 affiliated tribes in North America, the efficacy of this plan is entirely dependent on how well they could hold the city. While I complimented the 3 tribes earlier, I think this settle will just result in a new, relatively free Vandal city when catapults come knocking. 2 Sicilies settle a great city in modern-day Venice, which is far away from their capital, but is defensible due to the Alps. They now have the free reign to settle Italy at their leisure and maybe even reach around towards Kosovo if they're feeling especially cheeky. Meanwhile, Germany desires Poland so badly that they are moving their settler very close to the Teutonic Order's capital of Marienburg. Do I expect whatever city is settled to remain German? If it wasn't for their spectacular performance in test games, I'd say no, but I assure you this cocky forward settle might be preposterous, or it could be one of this season's greatest blunders. No in between. Teutonic Order, meanwhile, seem determined to settle to the north, and the Sicilian scout enjoys some lovely Kartoffelflurfler. That's it, with the hesitant German archer who just wants to watch a quarry get built in peace. Meanwhile, we get the first pantheon being founded somewhere off-screen. Neat. Recently agitated relations between Andres de Santa Cruz and Solano Lopez have been the talk of the town with the announcement of the new settlement south of our beloved capital today. A Peru-Bolivian settler who attended the festival celebrating the city's construction said, "I didn't even know you could do that. The local workers were blocking traffic, so I was just staying home. Didn't know I had an important job to do." The settler was fired and replaced with local hero Benicio Romani, who, in his anointing speech, announced that they will have an even bigger celebration than Paraguay. Local officials cast doubt on the validity of that statement, especially considering their capital still has only 1 working citizen. "That's why I did it," Solano started to press this morning. When questioned, he denounced the media before returning to his manor. This is Annuncion Weekly, signing off. Needing to decide whether or not to settle the Russian proving grounds between Perm, Soviet Union, All Russia, Uzbekistan lands primarily occupied by tundra, an essential tile meant to take advantage of the bonus luxury resources from their UA, opt to settle a nearly inhospitable city in the far North Ural Mountains on snow. Yep, that's great. In more positive news, hey, there's some goodie huts. I wonder if they have anything useful like technology or even free unit upgrades. There's one thing that Yuan has, and that's land, but where have we seen this before? while to a much lesser extent the mad settling spree of the Kalmyk Khanate proves that settling isn't the only thing that matters in this episode. Instead, building a great industrial base to constantly keep defending the many, many fronts you'll encounter is the more sustainable approach. To that extent, the settlement of a 3-tile city of Shangdu is a promising sign. But Kalmyk better get improving or else they might be left behind as the inevitable 6+ front wars come to Central Asia. That being said, units trained in conquered cities receive extra movement when you are at war with the nation you took it from, so maybe Mandukai aims to succeed where the Kalmyks fell short. Also, all Russia taking the goody hut right in front of Northern Yuan is a heck of an alpha play I love to do to an AI when I play Civ myself. Good stuff. Honestly, to go from 2 nations right next to each other in India last season to a large plot of land just waiting for wars to be fought is an exciting prospect. 3 cities settled towards the open lands of India. Who will come out on top? Personally, I'm expecting Punjab to come in. Their base land is pretty mediocre and they don't want to settle north because of Uzbekistan, so settling south along the coast seems logical enough, but honestly, it could be anyone's game. Something cool to note about the Depan is that it gains bonus combat strength from being near other Depan. It never obsoletes and can move immediately after purchase. That's a scary combination that might result in Bhutan fielding an entirely ranged archer army. Not scary for others, but scary for the prospects of a unified subcontinent. Archers don't take cities unless they are unoccupied, which, with AI, is unlikely to ever happen. With the settlement of Malindi, already the capital of Somalia is losing some tiles. A very risky proposition when a ship can surround the Zanzibar capital in only 1 turn after being produced. For their sake, we hope they get their Jahazi, a caravel replacement that, while weaker, costs no maintenance and provides gold for merely sitting next to an unclaimed, unimproved luxury resource nearby, both on land and at sea. Zanzibar needs to have a hunger for those tendies if he wants to ensure he doesn't mysteriously lose his capital in 1 turn. Oh yeah, and Somalia settled a yieldless city near Arabia off-screen without going for Lake Victoria, which I don't know how I feel. On one hand, the lake provides a lot of food early game, but actually gives less yields than your average tile late game with all those fancy future world improvements. Somalia might be playing the long game. Dang, I forgot how luxury rich this part of the world was this time around. These cities could be fertile cities down the line, but for now they will be food starved, and even then, where do they settle? South seems a smart choice, as north is full of flat, featureless desert up until you reach the borders of Perm or All Russia. I think it'd be best for them to spread out their cities to make the most of the land they have available because, remember, if you're not going to have more than 7 population, then you need 7 good enough tiles until specialists are profitable enough to invest into. So, further spread out cities would be a good choice for Islam Karamov. Once more, I'm going to point out that randomly upon city growth, the citizen has a chance to be sacrificed for gold, happiness, or civilian units, potentially allowing them to carpet the desert in cities without needing to invest the vital food in producing settlers themselves. Georgia's looking pretty blessed with their borders occupying Azerbaijani lands as they settle Kutaisi. I love the Georgian UA that turns forts into citadels over time while providing faith, but it would require them to build forts. I could see a dangerous combination with Architect of the Gods, a belief I transitioned that provides a bunch of yields to forts and citadels. Of course, you need to found a religion, which is a challenge in itself. Meanwhile, Soviet Union begins spreading itself with Petrograd near modern-day Ukraine, moving further and further down towards Georgia. With Kurdistan just to the south, Georgia might be compressed to the same borders as our timeline, which would be a shame. Not gonna lie, looking at the map, I would genuinely see a great opportunity for Zaire to just dominate the map. Jungle is only a garbage settle if you don't have workers, which AI loves to spam. They have a gigantic amount of land and only really need to dominate Nigeria to have a solid control of the continent. Everyone else is either crowded in northwest Africa on the coast behind mountains or has an immediate neighbor to distract them. Zaire has none of these problems, and with settles like Lubumbashi could pacify Nigeria and claim all of Central Africa. That being said, Nigeria's settle of Ibadan is relatively defensible, and with motions north, they are successfully trying to scout as much land as possible. Zaire has most of their army in their capital, while the Nigerian army is on the move. Much like Rio Grande and Mississippi, this is the conflict to watch in this continent. And with this, Jamaica makes landfall within close distance to where Haiti was assaulting Venezuela last season and where Buccaneers made landfall in Mark II. However, with traffic jams and a heavily militarized Bogota, the city might not be long for the world. Will we be seeing South America settle Cuba and the Haitian islands once more? My mind says Jamaica might neglect the home islands in favor of forward settling Olmecs and regretting both that settle and this one once their neighbors are fully militarized. The Heavenly Kingdom settles south to begin to squeeze Vietnam. This isn't good for anyone in Southeast Asia, and it seems to be well defended. Elsewhere, Manchuria seems to be happily claiming the North Korean peninsula, with one more city allowing them to unify the peninsula. I expect good things for the Heavenly Kingdom this game. Not gonna lie, not only do they have a lot of land, somewhat distant neighbors, but their only major land thread was Yuan and Vietnam, who both seem more preoccupied with settling north and south respectively. Good times for a Hong Jiaquan indeed. Honestly, the one thing I love from this season is how not crowded Western Europe is. We have a French, Italian, Spanish, German, with 2 Eastern European civilizations. The balance will allow for potential borders to very much resemble our own. Huge love goes out to Varia and DJ Jablonski for their amazing maps already this season. You guys make the season amazing to skim through. Cheers! Oh yeah, back to the game, we're seeing interesting relations and some buildup of units finally, with Wales having more than one archer, while Spain is already populating the cities with trades. Seriously, Carlos III, it's only turned 13 and you're already trying to make money. I can see where your priorities lie. Oh hey, another Pantheon. Cullen settles the Dawkinzz antagonizing city of Barer Balug, defended well with Diorite Axemen, which are warrior replacements with a one-time trade mission that gains more gold and experience the farther it is away. It's also cheaper if you're producing stone or marble, which I cannot immediately see here unless it's behind the capital. A shame, but I doubt we'll be seeing more than 4 of these. Take a picture, class, as these soldiers will be brandishing blades soon. As the satellite footage on the multiple screens of the RSV Babylonian Observer's bridge flip between various locations on the cylinder, one particular image catches the eye of Admiral Khalif Abd al-Rahman III. Stop, go back. That island in the middle of nowhere, quickly now. What is this civilization? They weren't in my documents. The PR representative for the analytics team is ushered forward to give their sheepish response. Sir, it's Tahiti. Leader, Queen Porea. Capital, Papeete, Pacific Island civilization. Their settles frequently get lost while at sea and reappear on coastlines half a world away. Inevitably end up with a disconnected intercontinental empire that other civilizations will just eat up. They seem to be doing as predicted, settler ready to get whisked away across the ocean, steady population growth. Not expected to be conquered early, not really expected to do anything, sir. The commander of the RSV Babylonian Observer harumphs and moves on to the next satellite image of the cylinder. Admiral Cloudberg here, dropping in to tell you about what's happening in Siberia. I haven't read any of the slides before this point, but here it goes. Great Perm and the White Russians are both settling northward, but one city is clearly better than the other. Samara has more furs than Kolchak, and they could ever conceivably wear, while Pakcha has a lot of this weird white stuff that falls from the sky. On the upside, however, maintaining a Great Perm is simple there. Just get your hair wet, sculpt it however you like, then step outside for a few minutes, and that hairstyle will become semi-permanent. Our first look at Hejaz since the intro slides, I assume since Command F'd Hejaz and didn't find anything else, shows that they have chosen to settle Medina to the south of their capital on the coast of the Red Sea. Hussein bin Ali has a critical decision to make going forward, however. Stick to the dry hills of western Arabia or make a run for the Fertile Crescent, which will bolster his food, population, and science, but will be difficult to defend. I don't think there's a right answer here, since usually the first civ that settles lower Iraq loses the region to someone else. Alternatively, Hejaz could make a big brain play by parting the Red Sea and settling the Nile instead. Thanadothur makes a risky but potentially decisive move, settling a third city in the fertile interior of British Columbia. The city is strategically situated on the backside of the Rocky Mountains, which will make it extremely difficult for the three affiliated tribes to attack, something which is especially important given that the Dene are known to be allergic to military units. So far, however, Four Bears doesn't have much of an army either, and with a fourth Dene city coming soon, the tribes could actually find themselves seriously outflanked. Over in Scandinavia, Finland has a third settler out ready to claim the Gulf of Bothnia for Great Suomi. Sweden, meanwhile, has claimed the Åland Islands, much to the chagrin of Finns everywhere. Also worth noting is that despite Scandinavia having a river or lake on practically every tile, Finland somehow managed to settle Turku on like the one spot in the entire region that isn't next to a river or a lake. Good job, guys. As Pekui stares out over the vast expanse of the Caribbean, she remarks to an aide, "One day this will all be ours." The aide seems hesitant. "But my lady," she stutters, "there are crabs out there." Crabs? You know, weird crusty boys with big claws and eyes on sticks. "Oh, those. What's the problem?" "I hate crabs," the aide mutters. A Babylonian named Boethius is giving a PowerPoint presentation in front of the submarine high command, including Nebi, Pedro, and Abd ar-Rahman. The topic? The mostest literate people on the cylinder. So far, there's not a ton of variation, as we're still in the earliest of opening stages. At the moment, 6 civs are tied for the lead with 9 techs. Lotwal blah 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 of the Chukchi, Genseric the Pokemon of Vandals, Ferdinand I of the 2 Sicilies, Llewellyn of Wales, Mansur Shah of Malacca, and Bargash bin Said of Zanzibar. Cool presentation, says Nebi. Next. Things are starting to heat up in Europe, where a lot of very aggressive civs and also whales are competing for a small amount of land. That said, Wales is the one with the most aggressive settlement plan here. Llewellyn has landed a settler in Normandy and will most likely plant a city there on the very next turn. This will probably piss off Vercingetorix, who made the questionable decision to settle in Belgium instead. The question is, can Wales hold on to their bold forward settle, or will the Gauls be forced to reckon with sneaky Carlos III, who is spreading the glory of Spain up through the Pyrenees? In the southwestern United States, 4 civilizations are encroaching on the region from 4 directions. Now, what would be very satisfying is if they form a perfect junction at the exact spot where Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico meet in real life. But let's be honest, this is all going to belong to Jamaica by episode 5. And why do I say that? Because Jamaica is on a roll. They've now settled a second city on mainland South America, this time in an even more defensible position. On a hill, on a river, next to a mountain. And on top of this, a 4th settler is heading off to the west to settle Central America. Gran Colombia, meanwhile, is still sitting on 1 city, refusing to move their settler. Maybe they're scared. Over in Southeast Asia, Laos and Vietnam are so far coexisting peacefully, but something tells me Laos has blood on its mind. Why? Because they've adopted honor, including the policy which gives them a unique great general. Their unique great general, the Uparaja, also immediately spawns 2 war elephants upon birth. You can see one of the war elephants just west of Vientiane, and another to the south. Is Vietnam ready for an elephant-based attack? Only time will tell. Our satellite pans to Hawaii, where it is possible to see the Liliuokalani has made her acquaintance with Toi Parina of the Tongva, who sent a dolphin scout across the Pacific to meet them. The shallow water connection between Hawaii and California is already paying dividends. Lily would be wise to remember, however, that those dolphin boys can settle cities, and that she barely has any land as it is. Better not lose it to a bunch of filthy mainlanders. Uzbekistan expands ever southward, building Samarkand as their first city south of Amu Darya. Despite being desert, these are fertile lands both in real life and in the game. Uzbekistan is the most populous of all the IRL Central Asian countries. Can they repeat this feat in the CBR? They certainly will have no shortage of happiness given the sheer number of luxuries in this area. They also have plenty of land to expand into with no neighbors visible anywhere nearby. Buy Uzbekistan stock? Do so on the Discord. The Pampas of South America begin to fill in as Paraguay and the Mapuche each hit 3 cities. Peru-Bolivia is sending a settler eastward, and God only knows where. Sir, says an assistant to Santa Cruz, we passed the big mountain oozing with silver and other precious gems not too far back. Wouldn't it be a good idea to settle there? No, Santa Cruz replies. We will keep going onto the open plain, straight into the territory of a madman who kills everything that moves. All right, sounds like a plan, the assistant mutters. Oh, what's this? War were declared. Unsurprisingly, the first war of Season 2 involves Paraguay. Much more surprising, however, is the fact that Paraguay is on the receiving end of the war, not the giving end. Despite having only one city, Simón Bolívar has decided to attack Solano López in what might just be the most batshit first war the CivBattleRoyale has ever seen. Grand Colombian troops, including a warrior escorting their settler, are already attacking hapless Paraguayan scouts. I don't imagine any cities are going to change hands here, but if it's a sign that Solano López has already overplayed his denouncement card, then it could be curtains for Paraguay sooner rather than later. Meanwhile, Jamaica has settled a fourth city on the Cayman Islands, which makes this already one of their best performances ever. Wow, that was fast. A coalition against Paraguay is already building as Palmares joins Gran Colombia in attacking the Mad Denouncer. Turns out insulting every civ you meet is a bad idea. Who knew? With his unique warriors already swarming in large numbers, Zumbi is in a good position to put the pressure on Lopez's newest and easternmost city, Pride. Can Paraguay hold its own, or will their neighbors decide 90% wasn't enough? Mandukai continues to settle cities in a line stretching even deeper into Siberia. On paper, it's a good move, staking out all that free land to build up a good core before attacking anyone else. On the other hand, not being aggressively early can lead to Yakusha syndrome, where the North Asian Civ has good stats but does nothing all game. In other news, ScoutCon seems to be coming to Siberia, with scouts from 5 civs in this scene, and possibly more arriving daily. The vast expanse of Central Africa remains unsettled, but Zaire is working quickly to change that, with a settler already heading east into the Congo Basin. Also, beating out the previous scene, this scene features 7 scouts. Can you find them all? My God, it's Yuan with a steel chair! Kublai Khan has attacked the Manchu with a massive horde of units, gunning or arrowing straight for Nuhachi's capital, Mukden. The city is on a hill across a river and has walls, so it will be difficult to take. But the Manchu are seriously low on units. Will their strong fortifications be sufficient to beat back Kublai's legendary war machine? I have my doubts. In the background, Japan makes a very curious decision to settle Osaka in Upper Manchuria, where they can't possibly defend it. You do you, I guess. Now handing the narration back to Lunar Needle, who has more big news for you. I'm back with another huge war declaration. We all expected it at some point, but for episode 1 for Vietnam to get declared on by Laos so early could be the do-or-die decision, and I think Laos has a superior unit composition here. Wars through the jungle are always going to be difficult, but with a unit carpet off the Laotian capital spilling into Vietnamese lands, it'll be difficult for Vietnam to defend. Thankfully, the mountain 2 tiles from the Lao capital might be the thing allowing Vietnam to effectively funnel Laoan troops to their demise by the hands of Vietnamese archer army. But will the lines break, and will Vietnam meet an early death? So the Vandals might get entirely locked in with the Ptolemies. Potential forward settling. Hopefully the Ptolemies die, so I don't have to try and pronounce that over and over. This isn't looking good for my investment into Vandal stock, but is looking good for the Ptolemies, who might have the majority of Northeast Africa under their control. Could this be the play that defines Cleopatra's reign? Unique ability reminder time. Queen of Kings allows Ptolemies to gain 5% of a civilization's highest yield upon establishing an embassy, potentially overbearingly overpowered on a CBRX scaled game. Watch the info addict stat rise for Cleopatra soon. Lesotho's settlement of Butha-Buthe puts them close by a moderately militarized rival with a city that has little to no defenses. Going to say that this was not a great position for Mshushu I, but yet again AI tends to prioritize total army size and not army size in immediate area like players, so they might... Lesotho, that's not an impressive army. I don't like a chariot archer, and I don't think it's going to save you here. I'd get that unit to the eventual frontline immediately. Good news, if they hold and secure this front line, they could build up and potentially take the Namibian capital. I'm interested heavily in how Lesotho and Namibia are going to trade this week. Chukchi are in an interesting position so far. They have decent swaths of land to potentially settle, but due to the projection of the map, it grants unique access to Hokkaido. With all the islands of Alaska being more tiles from the northern Japanese shores, they have a unique situation of large and well-protected island cities and large production centers on land. Expect them to overperform if they keep on aggressively settling their neighbors. Also, huge note, the Great Library was built in Omsk. Parg might be able to develop a large but early tech advantage. I'm beginning to see the potential end of Perm with their current situation, settling patterns in the empty Arctic and towards the Soviet Union. Keep your eyes to the north for the coming episodes. Not to add to Saltillo onto the situation, but now Rio Grande has 3 cities and is likely to be producing more. It even has a caravan boosting the food of its empire. Although all of that is likely to change as Mississippi aims to drop a distant settle much closer to the ocean than you'd expect. With the army of Rio and Mississippi both lacking, this decision might not immediately backfire, but I expect it when either empire begins to carpet up. A risky move, Tuscaloosa, but one I fully and entirely support as it could entirely contain Rio Grande to the Gulf. We close out the first episode with a few info slides. Even though we could not get images this time around of the holy cities, the turn that they were founded, we have here the first 3 religions of the game. Some nice picks for belief so far. Dene with Dance of the Aurora is sure to found a religion shortly. A few appropriate picks here and there, but I like that Spain went with cheese making. Jamaica with Ocean's Bounty is another good Pantheon choice that I see, and overall many of the upcoming religion founders have already staked out their Pantheon slot in prep for the next phase. Japan gets the very niche Spirit World Pantheon that complements their immediate start next to Mount Fuji. Nigeria with the buffed Sacred Groves also going for the very niche Marsh Tile bonus. There are still 19 more religion slots available, so expect this map to be filled with pretty colors soon enough. As always, we can also clearly see in this map all the cities founded so far. Not much for Malacca to show this time around, so action was elsewhere, but they are presently in the lead for most population. Hawaii coming in third to mirror Mark II, also abundant Ohana numbers. Malacca in the lead here as well. Promise no shenanigans as they take full advantage of a peaceful start. Spain with the highest production and also relatively in a good spot on the peninsula. They've done well to lock their core down and are building up. Gaul's leading for the most gold distribution, and several other new faces join the top ranks than the previous few rankings. Despite being surrounded by a few neighbors, Burkina Faso has spread out the most on the map. Little cozy, but having more land at the start is good if they can defend it. Hejaz with the most troops, and yet they have to travel a bit to their nearest competitor. It's probably not all in naval units, so Jerusalem is the only likely target if they are thinking of putting their army to good use. And that is all for this week. Join us again in 2 weeks' time for the next episode of CBRX Season 2. Content will still be coming on the subreddit during the 2-week interval, so check back here next week for the Power Ranking album and CBRY, which I'll be getting to eventually, sorry. Be sure to join our Discord to participate in our new simulated stock exchange to place bets on your favorite civs and see if you have the foresight to see who will be coming out on top. And with that, my name is Dawkinzz. Thank you again for joining me. Like, subscribe for all new content that we're going to be putting out now that we're in Season 2. I thank you all for being here, and we'll see you next time.